Let me share my screen. There it is. All right, here we go. So first of all, one of the last things we did at the end of the year was discuss how the RFP dates. We're not giving people enough time for the holidays. So I will say, like, an announcement has gone out actually several times, but the next milestone date for the P2P peer discovery is the week of January 17th. We'll get into this in a second, but we do need to discuss the next steps on that. If we want to meet with the Fudan and if we want to meet with OCI, the two bidders that week, so we could ask them direct questions. They can defend their positions, et cetera, et cetera. And then we are expected to award that, should we vote one of them as positive, on the 23rd. I will remind everybody there was a prerequisite related to this and also the next one, which is the budgeting exercise. But I'm going to table that and just talk about the RFPs for a sec, since this is just an update. The RAM limitation fixes, the bid is due on January 17th, so that's also the same day. As a reminder, ENF is the only team that has bid on that. So ENF will, submit that bid. And then, of course, if there is a desire to meet with ENF, which of course there will be, that will be the week of the 23rd. And assuming the ENF bid is acceptable to the other chain members, that would be awarded by the end of this month, January 30th. So any questions on that? All right, just like that. Marking the first one done. All right, so let's talk about P2P. As a reminder, there was two bids that came in, as I just said. And there was some discussion as to the cost component of OCI, because OCI was more expensive. There was a question about the required experience from Fudan, because they are essentially new to this kind of work. So this is sort of an open discussion to bring us all back up to speed. But what I'd like to do is figure out from the team, what are the next steps to, let's assume for a second that the budget question is going to be resolved. What's the next step on this RFP process for each of these? Do we want to meet with them both? And what are the questions that we want to ask? So I'll pause, be quiet, and open this up for comments.
Jeff, should this one be done on the Monday meeting if you want to go into these level of details? Because since you're recorded, OCI and Fudan will probably just watch this video and they're going to hear everything that's being discussed. If that's okay, then they'll already have a jump on, what we're discussing here. Or should this be moved to the Monday meeting where, we can do it kind of offline, so to speak?
That's
it's up to the rest of the group. I'm just kind of bringing this up to, Lucas and Jesse and Guillaume. Do you have any preference?
Let's keep these meetings very tight and organized on Thursdays, just status and what we're doing, and then any sort of deeper discussion should be on the Monday one.
I agree with that.
Yeah, good strategy.
So let's see, Monday is, I don't have a calendar in front of me.
It'll be the 9th.
And I don't think we have anything more pressing than this to discuss on that meeting.
Good, sounds good.
At the risk of being proven wrong in 5 minutes.
All right, then that resolves that. I'll move on to the next one. And this is a status update. RAM limitation fixes, as I mentioned, the bid is due on January 17th. That is still in progress. We should expect something from ENF in the next couple of weeks before then. The next one, Antler CDT, the work is in process. However, I have requested this, funny enough, from my own team, to put together a weekly status report so that I can provide you more information other than, yeah, work is just being done. So next week, I will be able to give more information about this. Ted, Bart, is there anything that you think is important enough to bring up today, or are you fine waiting a week to give the update on that as well, or for me to give the update on that?
Just to kind of set expectations, other than the holidays being a bit of an interruption, we have had some personal health issue that has affected some of the planning that would have been completed by now. So we have fallen behind in that structure due to some obviously, protected health type of concerns. And we're doing the best we can while we're processing through that.
Thank you for sharing that, and best wishes for the health of whoever is involved. And obviously we have to be realistic about these things. So thanks for the update.
Mm-hmm.
In all things, I think we just need to move forward from here at the pace that we can and that life allows. And I am very happy to hear that there's going to be ongoing status updates on a weekly basis from now on. So I think that's all good, and thanks for letting us know about that. I do have a question about the CDT. Are the current versions 3.0.1 and 3.1x, are they deterministic, or is there still that issue with that in some previous versions about the CDT not being deterministic? And if it's not, is that being addressed in the new Antler CDT?
So I'm not sure I understand when you say about deterministic. We do need to make a release that works of the CDT that works with the different versions of Leap, and we are not keeping the numbering system between those versions consistent, by the way. So there is kind of like, you have to have like a Rosetta Stone or something to look up and say this. It's usually in the release notes. You can look at it online and say, all right, this is the version of CDT that works with this version of the Leap libraries. I don't know if that all makes sense. Sometimes it'll work with some of the point releases, but there will be changes when it works with the larger releases. Was that what you were asking, or completely?
No, that's all good information. Thank you. And I don't think there's any problem with breaking the versioning system at this time, as long as we do it once and then can stay consistent. No, my question about deterministic was whether compiling creates a deterministic SHA signature on each build. We're having some trouble in the past. That was not the case in certain releases, and we're now having some trouble confirming some SHAs on some builds of the TELOS system contracts, and so I was wondering if the lack of and I think it had to do with how certain things were, the order of certain libraries being loaded and whatnot would make
that shouldn't be related to the CDT. Or were you doing this for?
It was from this.
Are you doing builds of the Leap system, or you're doing builds for doing like smart contract work?
Of the Leap smart core contracts.
I don't think you need CDT for that. I mean, you can use CDT on that, but you don't have to use CDT.
Okay, well, this is determined. This is getting into a technical conversation, so I'll take it in proper channels. It was apologies for that.
Yeah, Doug, that's always been a goal of the CDT. I know that in the past we've had some build toolchain issues that result in like a slight change in the binaries that come out for like when the build toolchain that you have for the CDT results in like two different versions of the same CDT that might produce a slightly different like binary, functionally equivalent, but like, you know, not bit for bit identical, which messes up that kind of like SHA verification. I know it's a long-term goal, and it always has been a goal of ours to have that be the case, but I think we have had some issues slip in. If you're aware of a current issue, I am not personally aware of a current issue that's like listed in our backlog, but if you're aware of a current issue with the current versions of CDTs that are released, please make sure that's, you know, reflected in our GitHub issues and
Issues. Okay.
we'll make sure it's addressed.
Douglas, I don't know.
Yeah, that's enough
opened
of a
the account
confirmation.
that you
Thanks so
had.
much.
I sent you, I mean, you asked for an account. I gave you an account. I don't know if you ever enabled it, but you should be able to open issues directly.
Great. If thank you. I'll offline with each of you guys about these.
Okay.
All right, next topic, Ledger app. Let's see. Ted, do you know if we have an update, or Bart, do you know if we have an update from Eric on where we are with our engagement with the Ledger team?
So I gave that last status that I think is in there. You know, he has been working with it. It's mostly them asking for him to do automated tests. Which he has done, and they became slow responsive of him submitting and, you know, and pushing it through the process. The last piece about, can we make it say Antelope with 4 different tokens after it? I did ask him that. I didn't get a response back because I think he's also been queued up on them. But I did push that through to him saying, hey, this is what the coalition would like. Is that possible? But again, he's mostly dealing with technical contacts that are solely interested in tests, you know, test builds working with automated, you know, CI/CD test type stuff. So I don't have an answer for that last one that's on that list, but he was at the point where he was waiting for them to get back to him last I talked to him, and that was before he headed off to Taiwan.
All right, any questions on that? All right, moving on. Developer onboarding and development workshops. So the last month there was a couple meetings scheduled. I think
yeah, Bart and I have met with them independently and together a couple of times. It does not look like this program is probably appropriate in the way it was crafted, and I've given them that feedback. The way their billing model worked would not work for any of the coalition members. It no longer works for us. The design of the program was also something where it was kind of, you know, and Bart has given them feedback on how he'd like to see it redesigned, but the goal of it was, you know, you maybe worked 5 to 10 hours a week, and maybe in the beginning, a brand new employee, say you hired someone off the street and they're a great C++ programmer, they might go to 2 to 3 weeks straight of training, maybe just 2, and then they would work, you know, 35 hours a week and do 5 hours a week of training, or 30-10, something like that. If you're not having your employees work 60 hours a week, I'm giving you a 40-hour a week example. And that program would last for 52 weeks, where they were doing, you know, 5 to 10 hours a week of training, and the rest of the time they were working on problems. Bart helped them restructure it a bit. They now realize from our feedback that the way they were trying to bill us just won't work. The ball is back in their court as to how to come up with a better billing plan. And again, I'll share that with you when they get there. And again, it would be this concept which may be more welcoming by, the coalition teams of, hey, I have a person that spends half a day a week in training, doing this stuff so that he's moving along on his training about EOS, but he's also coding and actually doing his job the majority of the week. And if he's really a hot shot, maybe he accelerates through that program. But then, how will that get, how would each of the coalition chains, which we would now be treated identically to the way the other 3 coalition chains would be, as to how do we pay for that moving forward? They have some skin in the game. They produced all the materials. They would be doing parts of the testing, etc., parts of the validation that the person has, like learned the materials, etc. But again, because they did all the training course creation and structure to it and everything, there would be some type of fee that would be paid as the students went through the training. So I'm not confident that they're going to make this a really high priority to get it done. Before they believed this was going to be a really large revenue generator for them, because they had tagged it to us hiring a number of additional OCI staff that they're going to make a margin on that as well. And now, since we likely will not be doing that, they have to see how they would set this billing up in a different way, and it probably will just not be as large of a initiative for them. And their delivery manager, who had been on the account since we had started engagement with them, has left the company, and he was also a piece of the glue that helped drive this and move it forward. So I don't even really have a great contact there. I do know their VP of delivery. I can get hold of him. He's the one taking the action item. So I would say this is in a less usable state than it was even before the holidays, but it will likely be more reasonable for the coalition chains if they do come back with the proposal, meaning it's a very low impact to your developer of 4 to 5 hours a week over the course of a year. But again, we're waiting to hear back since we've given them the feedback.
Any questions on that? Right. Now we'll move into a couple project updates. This up. Can you guys see the screen with the project scorecard?
Yes.
Okay. So Guillaume, you want to start us off with IBC update?
Yeah. So before the holidays, we received the confirmation that the audit was successful. They did produce a certificate that they have on the website right now. It shows the GitHub links of our private repo, but as soon as the code is published open source, I already spoke with them. They'll update to the, I guess, like to the proper URLs. So I'm assuming this would sit in the Antelope repository, but happy to have it on the EOS Titan in the meanwhile. But if I think the ENF is managing the Antelope GitHub. So if you guys want, you can create repos there, and we'll be able to push the code there and have the certificate link to that version. There's the next step, and probably final step or close to final step, is the actual deployment of the contract on all of our respective chains. I've worked on the M6. They're not exactly complete, but they're a bit complicated. Like to make it, I have to make it as a transaction so that BPs will only sign one transaction. They won't have to sign like a bunch because we're creating a bunch of accounts and all of that. So I should have that over the weekend. So probably sometime next week we can propose these and have BPs basically sign for transactions that will create the accounts. I'll configure them, like I'll structure these transactions to use one of my private keys for the active permission, and then I'll configure them all. And once they've been configured, essentially I'll chain like we'll let the BPs basically take over the accounts and activate the contracts, and at that point we're basically live for all intents and purposes. The caveat to that is we're still in the process of syncing Wax. Wax is, I'm sure you hear that every day, Lucas, but it takes a long time to synchronize a new node, and same with Firehose, which we need to do as well. So we're still in process. We started a week before Christmas, and we're still probably a few weeks before we're done. So that's the only caveat. That's like something that's required for IBC to work with Wex. We've been talking with Yes Nation. They do have some, I guess, like Firehose setup that's already up to date that we can probably use instead, that will speed up the process. So like, of course, it's a bit more complicated because now they have to give us access to their servers, and we have to kind of extract the data, like make a copy of it and use it to bootstrap our own like server proof server. But it's well, we've been discussing that, and that's our plan B to kind of accelerate the whole thing. Other than that, though, we're going to be pretty much ready to go next week. So there's I guess, like, if there is some additional content or marketing strategies or whatever that you guys want to put forward, it's probably a good time to start thinking about it. There's definitely, I think it's a newsworthy event that we should take advantage of. I do have a call next week with AREG, like I don't know if it's a fireside chat or something. I don't really remember, but that Brendan Lovejoy has been organizing. So we're going to be talking about that. Yeah, it's a podcast recording. I don't know. But yeah, we're going to be talking about IBC. And yeah, if there's anything else you guys want to kind of like announce, any kind of marketing plan or whatever, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help you draft it. So yeah, that's pretty much the update.
Any questions?
Yeah, quick question. So item number 6 on the key milestones is integration of IBC and instant finality.
Yeah,
that's all about instant finality. Is that right? There's nothing additional. There's no additional integration of IBC. IBC will be done.
Yes. No. It's mostly IBC actually that we have now modified to take into account the new proof scheme that will be possible through instant finality. So essentially, like the smart contract, the IBC smart contracts can be drastically simplified, and the verification time and the computing cost of verifying proofs will also be slashed, like by a factor of 20 or something. So we will essentially be rewriting the IBC contracts to take into account the new instant finality consensus.
Okay, thank you. Do you, other than the reduction in computation costs, do you see any downstream changes required by that to whatever we've deployed at that point on IBC, or is that meant to be a turnkey process?
Yeah, I mean, it will be a set code over the IBC contract. That's another multi-sig that BPs will have to sign at that point, and it will essentially overwrite the current code, replace it with a new one. But I don't foresee any other changes than that. Like all the other contracts, depending on IBC, will still be able to use it. There's I say that, but no, actually no. Like other contracts would also need to submit the new proof scheme. So like it would be it's essentially like any contract that uses IBC will have to upgrade to the new one.
Okay. I think I would request that note gets included in way down at the bottom on anything that announces this to developers so that they're aware of that. But it's very, but I think it's very exciting to have this going live. What's the projected? So my understanding is that UX is that your team is also going to be deploying a sort of a multi-chain pan coalition AMM
Yeah.
following this. That's not listed here, but do you have can you inform us of your plans there, and so we can all, is that going to be ready to go once IBC is live, or is that
Shouldn't be too long after. We currently have it deployed on our testnet, so it's already connected to the testnet, the IBC testnet, and it's still we still haven't publicized it, but it's there. We're still doing some internal testing, and yeah, I would say, I mean, we'll probably delay it a little bit. Like we'll release IBC first, and then we will essentially do some sort of an open beta for the AMM that sits on the testnet. And once we're satisfied with the result of the open beta, then we'll launch it live on the mainnets.
Okay. Look forward to hearing more about that as it comes.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
All right, well, let's move on to instant finality then.
All right. So for instant finality, I had a call with ENF engineers a bit earlier this week. So we it's kind of like we took some decision in that call and we overrode them right after the call. So that's kind of like Jesse was on the call. So we ended up, I mean, Eric is still weighing pros and cons from the approach that I originally suggested, but I think he's now leaning in that direction. So essentially, to give a quick recap, there's two different versions of the consensus model that we were considering. These are both hot stuff, but one is the basic hot stuff and the other one is the chained hot stuff. And there's a third one that is essentially like kind of best of both worlds, which we are most likely going to be implementing. In reality, these are relatively similar. It's just like kind of detail in how they work. But the one that we're most likely going to be using is called event-driven chain hot stuff, and this is the one that gives us the best of both worlds because it gives us essentially like the fastest finality possible with the most flexibility as well when it comes to configuration parameters. So and it's also probably the simplest to implement, which is also very good. So all of that is moving along nicely. I've got kind of like prototype almost ready. There's essentially like we have our a milestone coming up, which is the BLS signatures. So I've got that working. We have a few more kind of expanded, like I guess like extended scope that was not in the contract, that was not in the milestones, but after discussion that we decided to do, which is essentially to add additional crypto primitives that will make that will essentially allow for more a broader range of use cases that expands way beyond faster finality and way beyond BLS signatures, but it takes advantage of essentially like what's called pairing-based cryptography. So this is like this can be used for all sorts of zero knowledge systems, including ZK snarks, ZK starks, and all sorts of other things that have not been discovered yet. So it's going to be in there at some point. It's not part of that milestone, but we might also be ready to release that at the same time. So at the 15 January milestone. So yeah, that's pretty much the update there. I think we're still we're still in time for everything else as well. Like, so the milestone of the 28th February, February 28th, I think we're still good there, and the other ones as well.
Any questions?
Just before we move to the next topic, one thing that I would like to just raise is that we've been calling this instant finality, which is fine. That's definitely one of the benefit that this brings, but it really is an upgrade to the consensus model that makes possible a completely different range of governance mechanisms. So we're no longer strictly limited to DPoS with this. And we're definitely not limited to that 21 block producer anymore. We have definitely a lot more opportunities and the ability to be a lot more expressive in designing governance systems now once that upgrade goes live. So I think there should be at some point some agenda item where we can discuss these things. It's at this stage, I'm just saying brainstorm because there's a lot of implications, of course, and it's a governance decision. The technology allows it, but now everyone has to decide. All the chains will have to decide what that means for them, and if they want to take that route or not. So just maybe if we can have an agenda item at some point where we discuss that. It's probably better to discuss that at least initially on the Monday call because it's definitely going to be a lot more brainstorming. But that's a discussion that probably should be had sooner or later.
So, question: is it a configurable type item that you're thinking of? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We will when we release this, when the feature activates, it will be essentially mapping to the current configuration, the current DPoS configuration. So nothing changes really, except that blocks now take whatever, a few seconds to confirm. However, it also now introduced a whole new world of possibilities in things that were not previously possible that now become possible. So this is the topic of that discussion. Now, whether
high level examples, do you have any high level examples of what alternatives to DPoS come to mind that are not possible?
Without going too deep into details, now we're essentially taking the role of block producer and splitting it in 3 different roles. There's a role of block proposer, the role of block finalizer, and the role of view leader. Now, all of these roles perform one part of the current block producer tasks, but these entities can now be separate. They can be elected or selected in different ways. You can even use proof of work for some of these. So it really creates a whole new realm of possibilities when it comes to assigning these tasks. So you can move towards other systems of governance that were not even possible or considered before.
So my observation is those discussions are really more the province of each individual chain and not of the Antelope Coalition.
I agree.
So I think what would be exciting to discuss, but may not be a coalition meeting type discussion, is just socializing what those possibilities are. Getting engaging people's imaginations, but I don't think, I'd be surprised if any of our 4 chains had any major changes in how our consensus works in any period of time. I have said before I would like to see TELOS go to more block producers in the active cycle, but those things are on will be up to each chain, and but I'm very excited to learn about more about, and I think others will be more about what these possibilities are, but just not as a official coalition piece of business.
Cool.
I have one quick question about that. These different roles that we split the traditional block producer role into, proposer, validator, view leader. When instant finality comes through, will those be exposed to the system level contracts and just those system contracts are upgraded to mimic DPoS, or will there still need to be additional work to expose those different roles to the system contracts?
So the way I'm currently planning about doing this is there's essentially there will be now, like, let's call it like 3 different tables, one for finalizers, one for like proposers, and one for leaders, and they will be updated all at the same time whenever the schedule changes. But at that point in time, you know, like any chain could decide to start moving away from that and establishing new system contract, you know, features to select these roles individually. So right now, like it's all like still, you know, like quote producers, but yeah, the requirement, one of the requirements for us is to also like prepare this possible decoupling if anyone wanted to take advantage of it. So like it will be still configured the way it is under DPoS, but it will now be possible to change the configuration.
Okay, so the protocol level host function that sets the producer schedule will be deprecated and replaced by something that sets basically 3 different groups, and it will be the system contracts that are
correct,
that are setting those 3 groups of people to the exact same identities. Yeah. Just okay, all right, understood. Yeah. So then yeah, I think socializing that as a possibility then allows this to go and do what it needs to do for each individual chain. Right. There won't be any additional coalition level work to expose that functionality. That all can be undertaken kind of at a quote application level or a per chain governance level.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. So yeah, then I agree with Douglas. Like there's no need for us to take it any further in this group. We can expose that functionality, we can document it, we can even promote it and market it, and then let the individual chains figure out if, when, and how they would use those new capabilities to affect a different type of governance.
Yep, that sounds good. Any other questions?
All right. Aaron, would you like to give us an update on the SDK project?
Yeah, sure. We just had another call yesterday. It's published up on wharfkit.com if you need to catch up. The first usable code in a kind of a technical preview is available on GitHub. There's a blog post written for it. It was shared in the Telegram channel for WharfKit. And that should go public as soon as we iron out some bugs in the new blog section of the website. There's some code rendering issues on some of the previews. So yeah, we're going to be excited to start getting some community involvement in it. This community involvement has led to some questions of priorities, which may end up being surfaced to the group. I would say in the past 48 hours, multiple parties, some from the ENF, some from the community, have come out with basically timing concerns. Like it's this transition period that we're in with old solutions being improved and maintained, while eventually this new solution being replacing them. And there are some potential tweaks to the schedule of the project that could front load a little bit more of one kind of work to alleviate this. This is all really fresh. And the only reason I'm bringing it up here is that it may come back to the coalition for some sort of decision, or, you know, whoever the stakeholders making that decision would be. But overall, in terms of the current trajectory we're on, things are moving nicely. And it's good to have some usable code in the space. The brand kit, I guess, is the only notable thing coming out too, is that we are essentially submitting this as a completed milestone. So we need to start working through the process of vetting that with the coalition and making sure checks all the boxes, there are no objections, no feedback needs to be addressed, and then kind of checking that off as complete.
Yeah, I know that Adam is going to make sure that's facilitated.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll probably connect with him in the next 24 hours.
Yeah. Questions or comments? All right, excellent. So going back to our board, so there's 2 new agenda items. Well, provable state domains. Again, because of the holidays, there was not a lot of work done on the new requirements for that. Hopefully we'll get a better update by next week this time. And then the final agenda item for today is the coalition top up to fund the RFPs, which is really a subsection of a larger budgeting process or discussion. Again, that feels like one, Eve is not on the call today, and I think, unless Ted, you tell me otherwise, but I think that's one he would need to be part of. Is that correct?
Yes. He will be here next Thursday. He will not be on the Monday call.
Okay. Is this a topic we want to do on a Monday call? Like not this coming one, since he won't be there, but a week later?
It feels that way to me, given the level of back and forth that there's likely to be. I think our process of having those deeper discussions where there's no finality immediately arrived at, much better for, keep the mess on the Monday calls and then report on the outcomes on the Thursday calls.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
That does delay the outcome, though, of that is it does delay our ability to move forward on any of the RFPs or basically anything until we've made some decisions there. I wonder if it'd be possible for us to discuss some of that in a preliminary way on the upcoming Monday call, even though Eve won't be there.
Why don't we, Douglas, why don't we do it off camera on the Thursday call before we turn the camera on, since Eve will be there on Thursday? It really is a thing that we need Eve for. So
Okay.
if we just said, hey, this will be top agenda item Thursday before we start recording, people can quickly go through it and then we'll start recording.
That's fine. All I was going to propose was that on Monday the other chains perhaps discuss their limitations, but I think that's fine. That's a great solution. Let's do it that Thursday.
All right. You can see I set it to the top of the agenda, the progress list. So that's it for our items. Has everybody woken up from the holidays enough to think about anything else you want to talk about today, or are we good?
I'm amazed we got this much done. I suggest we adjourn. Well, quit while we're ahead.
It's a good start.
I'll second that, or third now that Lucas seconded it.
All right, all. Well, Dave, thanks for your time today. I look forward to a very productive year working with you guys, and I will talk to a bunch of you on Monday.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks,
everyone.
Jeff, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.